Hey, welcome to the channel. My name's Tom Pito and this is my 30-minute no repeat kettlebell workout. This is a full body follow along that you can do at home. There's 30 exercises in 30 minutes, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. I'm going to use 3 different weight kettlebells for this. I will link them in the description with what I used, but you can do this whole routine with a light to moderate weight without having to change. We're going to start off with some dead stop swings. Start with a kettlebell on the ground, tilted at an angle, your hips relatively low and your back flat. You're going to swing the kettlebell under nice and tight to your body, have a hip thrust to generate the power on the kettlebell, and then return back to your starting position. The dead stop swing is a great way to start any kettlebell swing. So anytime you're going to go into a swing exercise, this is how I want you to start it. You've got a 20-second rest now, and then we're going to move to an alternating arm, clean and press. When cleaning the kettlebell, to avoid bashing yourself on the wrist, don't flop the kettlebell up and over the top. Instead, roll your elbow round and inside of the kettlebell, having a nice rotation action as you clean. Then you can push press it overhead with a slight knee bend. Next up, we got some overhead swings. These are often called American swings. I don't know why. Most of my viewers are actually from the USA, so maybe you can let me know in the comments at the end of the workout. Perhaps you guys just like everything that a little bit bigger and better, so you just go the full send overhead. So you just need a little extra hip power to get that kettlebell up and overhead. When it's upside down, you might want to squeeze the handle that little bit tighter just to control it. Don't go too far, you definitely don't want to overshoot over the top. I've got 1 or 2 marks on my studio floor from people going a little bit too big overhead, so make sure you're at 95% rather than going all the way over past 100. Next up, we're going to do a single kettlebell floor press. I'm going to use a fairly heavy kettlebell, but if you think your kettlebell's too light for a floor press, feel free to do push-ups instead in this interval. Keep your elbows tucked in nice and tight on the way down. Keep lowering down until the kettlebell makes gentle contact with your chest, and then press back up to the top. Back to your feet now, we're going to do a goblet squat. Keep the kettlebell nice and close to your body. You don't want to have it pushing out front too much or it'll cause stress on your lower back. Keep an upright body position also, and your knees pushed out on the outside of your big toes so they're not caving in at the bottom. If you want to put a slight pause at the bottom of the movement, that's fine, or if you just want to use the stretch reflex out the bottom, that's also okay. Next up, we've got some conventional kettlebell swings. These are also known as Russian swings. Again, I'm not sure why they're called Russian swings. If I've got any Russian viewers out there, or if anyone knows why they're called Russian swings, let me know in the comments at the end of this video. One of the biggest mistakes I see on kettlebell swings is people doing what I call a squat swing, where they stay way too upright and they're afraid to hinge at the hip. They're trying so hard to keep their back flat, which is good that they're trying not to round over, but they end up with excessive pressure on their back, curving the other way into hyperextension. So don't be afraid to let your hamstrings stretch by hinging at the hip and lengthening back. We also don't want to do a straight leg swing, so try and get that happy medium between allowing leg bend but also lengthening the hamstrings backwards. Next up, we're going to move onto a split stance single arm row from the floor. You can lean your free arm on the front leg if it gives you extra support. Try and keep the spine nice and long so you're not rounding forwards. I want you to row that kettlebell up and back towards your pocket. So don't pull it up in a straight line. You actually want to pull back, engaging the lats a little bit more. Next, we're just going to repeat the same again on the other side. Onto an isolation exercise next. We're going to do a kettlebell bicep curl. Brace your core to minimize any movement of your body. You want to curl the kettlebell up, squeeze your biceps hard at the top, crushing the gap between your forearm and your bicep as close as possible, but without resting the kettlebell up in a vertical position, and then lower down with control to get as extended as you can at the bottom. Now we're moving on to a kettlebell sumo deadlift. You want a nice wide stance for this with your toes turned out. You should also have your knees pushed out to the side, and you're going to hinge at the hip like a deadlift. I have a slightly more upright squat than a conventional deadlift, but definitely hinging more than a squat. Wrap your lats around your sides of your body as if you're trying to put your shoulder blades in your back pockets. This should keep your back nice and flat and will set the whole line of your back nice and supported. Push your knees out to the side, especially with this toe turned out position. You should have your knees pushed out to match. Hinge at the hip, gently touch the kettlebell on the floor. It shouldn't be too heavy with a single kettlebell, so you should be able to get a lot of reps done in this interval. down to a lighter, more moderate weight kettlebell now, and we're going to do a clean to reverse lunge. I've added all the weights that I've used in the description of this video, and we're going to step back with the same side you're holding the kettlebell on. This offset kettlebell position will add a little bit of core strength and stability to the lunge. Make sure you're hitting a nice depth when you step back, either touching or coming very close to the floor. A short break now, and then we're going to go again with the other side. We're going to change up the plane of motion we're working in now by doing some alternating side lateral lunges. This is also a really great exercise for improving your hip flexibility. Make sure both feet are symmetrically turned out. You want to keep the trailing leg straight and don't let the bending leg collapse inside of the big toe. Now we're moving on to some alternating single leg Romanian deadlifts. If you're standing on your left leg, you should have the kettlebell in your right hand and vice versa. I recommend unlocking the knee of the leg you're standing on, but then keeping that shallow knee angle fixed throughout the whole rep. You're going to switch hands between each leg, holding the kettlebell in the opposite hand of the leg you're standing on. Try and lead with the heel rather than leading with the body. It's more common that I see people leaning too far over with their body and not high enough up with the back leg. Let the hamstring dictate how far you go. So when you feel that hamstring stretch, that's at the end of your range of motion. Onto the floor now, we're going to do some reaching crunch leg raises. So you're going to stay up in a reaching crunch position while doing a very controlled leg raise up towards the kettlebell. If you find that your neck's getting tired, you can always put your head on the floor for this, but I find it useful for keeping my abs engaged to stay up in a slight reaching crunch position. It's really important that when you lower your legs down, you don't let your lower back arch off the floor. So if you're really struggling with that, just put a little bit more bend in your legs or don't lower them as far. Another kettlebell swing exercise now. We're going to do some alternating side single arm swings. You should be transferring the kettlebell between hands when it reaches peak height. And a little tip for making the transfer easier, have your hand shuffled slightly over to one side of the handle, leaving a little bit of space for the other hand to catch it in the transfer. Here we have an exercise that's not seen very often, but I really like it. It's great for the upper back muscles and also great for the shoulders. It's a kettlebell Z press. This can be done with dumbbells or barbells also, but here we have how to do a single kettlebell Z press. If you've got relatively tight hamstrings and you're struggling to sit upright without leaning back, then put a slight leg bend, as you can see me doing in the video. You want to have a nice vertical torso position, press the kettlebell up and overhead. You should almost be pushing your chest forward to counter that natural urge to lean back. Now we're moving on to a bit of a shoulder burner. We're going to do a kettlebell halo. You'll see I'm holding the kettlebell upside down. I find this the most comfortable way to do it. It's also pretty good for improving your shoulder mobility. Just roll the kettlebell around your head in a circle one way. When you get to the front, change direction. Onto the floor now, we're going to do a kettlebell skull crusher. You can see that I'm holding the kettlebell by the handles in the same position I was holding it for the halo. Start with your arms straight, but a slight angle to that straight arm back towards your head. You're going to slowly lower the kettlebell down just above your forehead and then extend and squeeze the triceps at the top. Make sure you don't bash your head with the kettlebell. Now we're going to move onto a dead bug pullover. You might want to move down to the lighter kettlebell. I stuck with the same weight for this, but I did find it quite heavy with this weight, so feel free to move down one if you have a selection. The dead bug is a great core exercise. You should be bracing your abs, keeping your lower back flat to the floor for the whole movement. We're also going to add some lats in by doing a pullover overhead. I'm putting a slight bend in the elbows, but that angle is going to stay fixed for the whole pullover. going to move down to the lightest kettlebell I use now in this workout, and you're going to do a push press to windmill. This is a really tough one and will definitely test your mobility. With the kettlebell in my right hand, I'm going to push press overhead, and then hinging at the hip, back and sideways. I'm going to reach down with my left hand down the inside of my left leg and touch the floor on the inside of the foot in line with my shoelaces, looking up towards the top kettlebell. Then I'm going to rotate back up to the top, reset with another push press and repeat. If you're struggling with flexibility, you can unlock the left knee on the side that you're reaching that hand down. We're going to go again with the other side. So I'm going to have the kettlebell in my left hand this time. I'm going to reach my right hand down the inside of my right leg. Back to an overhead position, we're going to do a kettlebell overhead reverse lunge. If you've got the kettlebell in your right hand, you're also going to be stepping backwards with your right leg. Make sure you keep the elbow locked out in a nice stable overhead position. Keep the core locked in, trying not to overarch your lower back. Get a nice deep lunge and then stand back up to the top. Make sure your front knee isn't collapsing in towards your big toe. Now we're just going to do the same again on the other side. Back to the floor now, we're going to do some Otis ups. This is a sit up and we want you to lengthen your spine at the top, reaching the kettlebell up towards the ceiling. Trying to minimize any swing of the kettlebell, you're going to crunch up and then carry that through into a full sit-up position, finishing sitting nice and upright, reaching the kettlebell up towards the ceiling, lengthening out your spine. Lower with some control and then repeat. Now we're moving on to some alternating side single arm overhead swings. You'll see that I'm adding in an extra half height swing to allow me to smoothly transition the kettlebell between sides. Without that extra half swing in the middle, it'd be very difficult to transfer the kettlebell, as you want to transfer it at peak height, but you don't want to transfer when it's over your head. So just add in that half, switch, and then pop straight back up to the full height swing. Some of you will have heard of an exercise called a Turkish get-up. This is a great exercise, but it's a little bit complicated, so we're going to break it down into its two component halves, and we're starting with a half get-up. You're going to have your left arm in the air, your left knee in the air, and the other side's flat. Crunch up, reaching up towards the ceiling, coming onto the elbow, then through to the hand. Once you reach that position, you're going to pop your hips up into a glute bridge, pause for a second while you squeeze your glutes, and then come back down to that starting position. Try not to let the left knee collapse in towards the inside, so you want to keep that pushed out, and don't let the right straight leg fly up and off the floor as you go for the sit-up. So we're going to switch it to the other side now. So you're going to have your right arm straight for the whole time and off the floor. You're going to have your right knee bent and up, and you've got your left arm and left leg laying flat down on the floor. With the kettlebell in your right hand, crunch up through the elbow onto the left hand. Pop the right hip up into a glute bridge, squeeze at the top, and then come back down to the start position. So you've learnt the first half of the Turkish get-up from the ground up. Now we're going to do the second half from the top down. So you're going to have the kettlebell in your left hand. You're going to step back with your right leg, reach your right hand down to the floor, and then revert it to finish the rep. Taking it nice and slow, step back with your right leg to gently kneel on the floor. Do a side bend, reaching that right hand down to support yourself. When you reach that hand on the floor, you should be looking up towards the kettlebell in the left hand. You're going to side bend back to the half kneeling position and then stand up to the top. Take it nice and easy and repeat for as many rounds as you can get in this 40-second interval. This is the final interval of the workout, and we're going to do the same again with the other side. So you've got your kettlebell in the right hand, you're going to step back with your left knee and reach your left hand down towards the floor. So with the right hand in the air, you're going to step that left knee back, reach the left hand slowly to the floor in a side bend, look up towards the right hand, kettlebell at the top. Then you're going to side bend back to the half kneeling position, step up to the top and repeat. And that's a wrap, workout complete. Thanks for joining me. Let me know in the comments how you found this workout. Did you manage to follow along okay with those half get ups and get downs, or was it just too complicated? Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video. Check out my playlist. I've got loads of other kettlebell ones, dumbbell ones and barbell workouts you can get involved with. Don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully see you again soon for another workout.